From a dream within a dream, it's the IGN Digigods. Please welcome two men who think there's so much beauty in Uwe Boll's films that they feel like they can't take it, Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
Yeah, so Mark, we need more Vox boxes, so people need to send them in to gods@digigods.com. Just record yourself asking something pithy and wonderful and silly, and we will we'll be equally silly and answer it. Send us listener mail, gods@digigods.com. We got some of that today too, if we can get to it.
And more outros.
And more outros. We need outros. We need exits. We need a little zinger at the end of every show. Please submit suggestions for that. You know, like a good night and good luck, or go screw yourself, or something like that. Something sweet and endearing that will make us money.
Make us money?
I don't know. Whatever.
In the lucrative podcasting industry?
It is lucrative for somebody out there, the people who make the equipment, basically. What wonderful things are going on in the world of movies, Mark, right now, other than Lone Ranger just taking gas?
It's already done. It's a done deal.
Man.
Sorry, Lone Ranger.
And White House Down, that didn't even... That went nowhere. I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's too bad. Because
you knew that this summer was going to have a couple of stinkers.
Well, every summer's going to have a couple of stinkers from now on in.
But the tent poles, they throw so much money at these things, and man, wow. Well, anyway.
Well, last week, you went crazy about the Linda Opes book.
Yes.
And I hope you went on the site to check out Wade's interview with the author.
The midweek update, which I still think it was just wonderful for me to talk to her. I just had so much fun, and it was so illuminating. So still highly recommended. Sleepless in Hollywood. Read it. Everything will come into focus for you. We should get going into this. Mark, last week we left off talking about classic movies. And there were a bunch that we didn't get to, namely a gigantic stack of Warner Archive titles. Warner Archive has just been going nuts lately, so I want to call people's attention to some of the tremendous titles coming out here. Remember, these are all MOD, manufacturer on-demand titles. That means they are DVD-Rs. That's a fancy studio way of saying they are not regular mass-production DVDs. They are DVD-Rs, so they're a little less stable. But you know what? The quality in some cases is as good, if not better, than what some of these movies had, some of them which were previously released on commercial-grade DVDs. First one is A Guy Named Joe, the Victor Fleming film, starring Spencer Tracy and Irene Dunne. Victor Fleming, of course, famous for both 1939 classic Technicolor films, The Wizard of Oz, and the Gone with the Wind phenomenon. And even though Victor Fleming really was one of, 9 guys that sells in a cat on Gone with the Wind?
Oh, sure.
It was something. I mean, it was like King Vidor, and, it's like everybody had a hand in that movie, but he somehow got the credit for it. Anyway, A Guy Named Joe. Mark, why is A Guy Named Joe famous?
Because it's about a guy named Joe.
No, you know what this is.
It's Spencer Tracy's first...
It's about a pilot who dies in 1944, and
Steven Spielberg remade it.
That's right. What did he remake it as?
Always.
That's right. He remade it as Always, which was Audrey Hepburn's last film.
Yeah.
That's so sad. Anyway, Guy Named Joe that was so impressed itself on Spielberg that he remade it. Also features Van Johnson, Lionel Barrymore, and Esther Williams, as well as Barry Nelson, the original television James Bond. You know what? Who happens to be in this movie along with Ward Bond. How about that?
How about Burt Ward?
No. Anyway, just a classic old Hollywood melodrama. You definitely want to check that out. It's from the Warner Archive collection. The Power and the Prize, with Robert Taylor, Burl Ives, and Elizabeth Mueller, who was supposed to be a big deal at this time and went nowhere. This was an MGM CinemaScope movie from the golden widescreen era of 1956, right as things were just starting to pop. And I gotta say, it's a little schmaltzy. Mary Astor is wonderful in this film. Everybody else is just kind of along for the ride. Mueller was never, she came from Switzerland, and was supposed to be like the next Ingrid Bergman, and it just never really happened for her. But that being said, it's perfectly fine. It's a perfectly adequate melodrama. Previously on DVD and then discontinued out of print and now back thanks to the Warner Archive is Back to the Beach. Mark, you love Back to the Beach.
Ned Funicello passed away recently.
I know, so sad. This is the campy revisitation of the old beach movies with Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello, which is just if you love television from the 50s and 60s. And not just the beach movies, you'll absolutely adore this because it's got like references to Get Smart, to Gilligan's Island, Bob Denver, and Alan Hale even have cameos in here. And we're going to talk about Bob Denver a little bit later as well. And Don Adams is in this thing, Pee Wee Herman is in this thing, the Beaver and Wally are in this thing. I mean, it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's just a tremendously delightful camp classic from a director named Lindell Hobbs that did nothing else. So sad. But one of the last kind of really cool Paramount films from Frank Mancuso Jr., and this is being released through the Warner Archive Collection, courtesy of that agreement between Paramount and Warner now. Where there's all these old Paramount library titles that they just said we don't know what to do with these. We don't really want to exploit them here. You do something. So we're getting a lot of Paramount titles out of Warner Brothers now.
Well, Paramount seems to take the least amount of interest in their library.
They do, and it's kind of sad. But
the
Linda Obst book sort of gets into that, doesn't it?
That is true.
And, of course, my interview with her touched on that as well.
Was that the interview with her that you didn't tell me you were interviewing her? And
yep.
it was a surprise to me?
That would be the one.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what I had not realized, Mark? Are you a fan of Zandy's Bride? Did you ever see Zandy's Bride?
I did not.
You're a Gene Hackman fan.
I love Gene Hackman. He's my all-time favorite.
How did you not see
You know how many movies Gene Hackman did?
I know.
Especially during that era.
10,000. Well, this is really interesting. This is a 1974 film with Gene Hackman. And there are so many interesting things about this that I don't even know where to get into. But it's the true story of this guy. It's this true life, amazing Western story. Directed by Jan Troell, the Swedish director who did the Emigrants, and who was a big deal at this time. And we were just talking about Liv Ullmann. Well, Liv Ullmann is in this as well. And on top of all that, you know who wrote the screenplay for this thing?
Oh, yeah, it was Paddy Chayefsky.
Mark Norman.
Really?
Mark Norman, who wrote the first draft, the original Shakespeare in Love screenplay.
Ooh.
Isn't that interesting?
It is.
I had no idea. I mean, I've seen this movie before. I think it's a really cool movie. I think it's one of those great kind of gritty period films from the 70s. A little bit like what was the Altman thing that
Nashville?
McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
Oh, McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
McCabe and Mrs. Miller. There's kind of a McCabe and Mrs. Miller vibe to this. So anyway, I thought it was cool. Greta Garbo stars in The Painted Veil. You gotta love Greta Garbo. I am a huge Greta Garbo fan. I'm just so sad she didn't make more than a handful of movies, and you can get them all just about at Warner Archive Collection, including The Silence. This is from 1934. And the significance of this film, The Painted Veil, apart from the fact that it was recently remade with Edward Norton and Naomi Watts, quite nicely, actually, is that this was directed by Richard Boleslavsky. And Richard Boleslavsky, is known for being kind of the guy who wrote the book on directing actors. Boleslavsky was the guy who inspired Stanislavski, who inspired the whole method philosophy of what's his face, the guy that started the whole method thing. Yeah, him.
Russian guy.
Yeah, no, not the Russian guy, the American guy.
Oh,
yeah, who's got the place over here in Hollywood that we always forget about. Nobody cares about. He's got the daughter. What's her name? Yeah, method actor guy. Mark will think of it. Look it up. Get on that, would you?
No, I'm not going to look it up. I have to think of it.
Also, Warner Archive Collection, Otto Preminger's A Human Factor, based on the Graham Greene novel.
Lee Strasberg.
Lee Strasberg, thank you, that guy. Susan Strasberg's dad, Mrs. Strasberg's husband. As you would say, Tom Stoppard, as long as we're talking about great screenwriters who had a hand in Shakespeare in Love. Tom Stoppard wrote the screenplay for the Human Factor based on the Graham Greene novel, and it's really, really good. This is not maybe the best Otto Preminger film ever, but it certainly keeps pace with some of the other stuff. Richard Attenborough, John Gielgud, Derek Jacobi, Robert Morley, Nicol Williamson. I mean, it's a really, really great bunch of guys. And Iman even shows up in this. This was her first film before she decided to become a housewife to Mr. Bowie. So not bad. Moving quickly through these, MGM made a movie called Right Cross with Lionel Barrymore, June Allison, Dick Powell, and Ricardo Montalban. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because I think this has one. It's a boxing movie, right? It's an old classic Hollywood boxing movie. There were a million of them. Directed by John Sturges, who would later go on to do the Great Escape brilliantly. But this has the worst tagline of any movie ever. And the only way they got away with it was because it was a different era. Mark, read the tagline.
Oh, he knew how to treat him rough in the ring or in romance. It's just cheesy.
It's just cheesy. I don't know. That wouldn't fly today. June Allison and Dick Powell also in The Reformer and the Redhead. I don't know that would fly today either. That sounds terribly, terribly sexist. But this was produced and directed by Norman Panama and Melvin Frank. Norman Panama, of course, had a wonderful track record with a lot of comedies, including some Jerry Lewis movies. And I don't know that this is a great comedy, but it certainly is entertaining and has a nice. June Allison she's just so pure and wonderful, and why not? Another Paramount movie that we finally get back on DVD again, courtesy of the Paramount Warner deal. Of course, now it is on DVD-R through the Archive Collection, is Kids in the Hall and Brain Candy.
Dud.
Did you like this film?
I'm not a big Kids in the Hall fan.
See, I love Kids in the Hall, but the movie itself just felt a little bit obscure to me.
The only thing I remember from Kids in the Hall that I liked was I'm Crushing Your Head.
Oh, it's so funny.
Remember that? He would take
Brilliant.
his fingers and go, I'm crushing your head.
I loved it.
I'm crushing your head.
Love it. The Molly Maguires, directed by Martin Ritt, starring Richard Harris and Sean Connery, and Samantha Eggar, who I always loved as well. Good, solid, gritty coal mining movie that you can't get enough of those, and it feels like a total far cry from the coal mining movies like How Green Is My Valley and all that stuff, where it's kind of romanticized. This isn't romanticized. This is just gritty and grungy.
You know who would make this movie today is John Sayles.
Oh, probably. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So anyway, this is it's a good movie. Molly Maguires definitely has that Martin Ritt social realism thing going for it. And then Jupiter's Darling, a big MGM musical from the Esther Williams era. If you have any of the other Esther Williams stuff, you'll probably want to get this. It's kind of silly. It's like if Cecil B. DeMille had done a musical set in 216 B.C. Around the story of Hannibal and Carthage, it would be this movie. It's kind of ridiculous. It's sort of embarrassing, but it's colorful and kitschy and silly, and has wonderful choreography by Hermes Pan, one of the old great MGM choreographers. And then coming down to the last two, Bette Davis in Winter Meeting, which is just another schmaltzy melodramatic romance about a poet who falls in love with a war veteran. And that's just exactly what they were looking for in 1948. They were looking for all kinds of residual World War II melodramas based on a cheesy novel by a woman named Ethel Vance, which I thought was funny because Vivian Vance played Ethel on I Love Lucy. I never knew there was an Ethel Vance. Did you?
I did not.
See? You love that. Good music by Max Steiner, by the way. Good score. That's about the only decent thing in that one. And then another Bette Davis movie, Front Page Woman, which is a little more famous, and I'm kind of surprised that this hasn't been on Blu-ray, to be honest, because it is one of the better Bette Davis collaborations with major directors, directed by Michael Curtiz of Casablanca fame. And it's a pretty funny kind of romantic comedy that you would have expected from like the Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. It's got that kind of vibe to it, kind of a front page vibe, and in this case it's Front Page Woman. So they're definitely going for the same audience, and Bette Davis is terrific in it, so absolutely wonderful. Michael Curtiz, really good job. And with that, Mark, tell us about Heavy Traffic.
Oh wait, I get to talk now?
You get to talk now. I'm done with the Warner Archive blurb.
Wow.
Spiel.
Heavy Traffic from 1973 was written and directed by Ralph Bakshi. This movie was originally given an X rating. Now it's given
Ralph Bakshi, an X?
I know.
Oh.
Well, now it's been downgraded to an R. But like all Bakshi films, this is animation. There's also some live action in this too, but it's pretty out there, like all the Bakshi stuff. I don't know that this is as funny and was not as controversial or groundbreaking as Fritz the Cat, but it's still good stuff if you're a Bakshi completist. Looks great on Blu-ray. Includes a couple of actually includes no extras, unfortunately, but still, it's good stuff. Heavy Traffic. This is it's funny because in the movie, Bakshi just didn't care. I mean, like, the main character in the film is named Michael Corleone.
That's awesome.
I mean, how can you not love that? But, yeah, so the animation is very crude, but it's also very dirty.
Well, that's what Bakshi was never a great animator.
No.
He just had style.
He was like an envelope pusher who had style. And that's why we love him. But also, like, it was funny because there was, in the mid-'70s, there was Bakshi and there was, like, Walt Disney. Like, the two polar opposites of what represented
and the Fleischers were kind of pretenders to the throne, right? But yeah, you're right. Bakshi was the anti-Disney. He was the guy that said animation can be dirty and doesn't have to be cute.
That's right. Oh, and this film is not cute. And there's heavy traffic. It's good stuff. Wade, the big release of the week is 42, the Jackie Robinson story.
Yep.
This stars Harrison Ford as. And now it's nice to see Harrison Ford not taking a paycheck. He's actually like almost possibly crafting a character.
Yep.
And playing a role.
Yep.
When was the last time he did that?
I don't know.
This movie is it's a story that obviously needs to be told, and we do have a couple of other Jackie Robinson DVDs to talk about in a second. But
we should
this
point out
one,
that Spike Lee,
he should have directed this.
Well, he wanted to for the longest time. This was supposed to be a Denzel Washington thing. For the longest time, and he adapted it, and he from some biographies, and he put a lot of work into it, and it just never came together. And I don't know how that doesn't happen, except for the fact that he kind of tarnished his reputation as a frugal director after he made Malcolm X, and that didn't make money, and everybody kind of thought, well, do we really want to go to that well again, another biopic with these two guys? But that should have happened. Well,
it would have been a much different film than what we have, directed by Brian Helgeland. The Spike Lee one would have been a little more incendiary, pointed. This one is incredibly old-fashioned. It is old-fashioned to a fault.
Good for Helgeland.
Huh?
Good for Helgeland.
And I think there's some merit in that. I don't know if it's the movie that people want to see necessarily, because again, because Jackie Robinson, at least in this film, is the epitome of goodness and wonderfulness, and the evil, racist, horrible baseball owners are evil, racist, and horrible.
Yeah,
it's a little bit black hat, white hat, so to speak.
Yeah.
But there is something refreshing about a movie that is so sort of wears itself on its sleeve.
Absolutely.
I think it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, 42, it's not that bad. Now, we have a couple other DVDs regarding Jackie Robinson. We have Letters from Jackie, The Private Thoughts of Jackie Robinson. Is this the same thing?
Yes.
Now, wait, this is back when people wrote letters.
Yeah.
Now we send texts.
Yeah.
So really, like, someday they'll have, like, texts from Albert Pujols.
Yeah, probably.
That's what they'll have.
Yeah.
But this is great stuff. This is Jackie Robinson, and he is writing letters to, Martin Luther King and President Eisenhower and his daughter and his wife, and he had a longtime pen pal that he also writes letters to. That's all dramatized here. So it's a great way to get a sense of what he really thought. I mean, this is stuff that he never thought would go public.
Yeah.
So he had no reason to censor himself.
Well, he had a pen pal. That's what I find interesting about this doc. He had a pen pal, this Ron Rabinovitz guy, and it's interesting. You don't think of, like, would you expect any major athlete today to have a pen pal?
No.
See, I mean, it's just he's a down to earth guy.
No, they tweet. Like, they follow your Twitter feed,
and
you follow their Twitter feed,
they insult people.
That's it.
They insult people, and they say things like, "I'm going to get you, you stupid queen." Thank you, Alec Baldwin. What the? But no, Queen. Alec Baldwin wrote Queen. He said Queen.
Oh, really?
And then he had to go on record explaining how when he uses the word Queen, it doesn't mean what everyone else uses it as.
Yes, it is. He was just really pissed off, and in a peak of fury, that's what he did.
Oh my gosh!
Wait, why do you have so many copies of the movie Beck?
No, it's not a movie. It's a TV series.
Oh.
Well, we'll get to it.
Okay.
We'll get to it. It's many volumes of a TV series. We'll get to that. You know what, Mark? I am so glad this was actually released on DVD previously, and I couldn't get a copy of it for whatever reason. It just wasn't available. And now it's being released again from Lionsgate, and I'm so glad because I actually didn't get anywhere near this when it was in theaters. The Oogie Loves and
This is a very controversial little movie here.
Oogie Loves and the Big Balloon Adventure. Oh my gosh, easily one of the biggest catastrophes of all time.
Well, it was also a self-financed catastrophe.
Totally. Well, not self-financed, but independently financed. I mean, They went and just dug up. Basically, the guy who made this movie has a long record. I won't get into all the details of it. Has a long record with children's television, and went and drummed up a lot of independent financing to make what he thought was going to be the first of a great big giant kind of Teletubby-like movie franchise. And they marketed the hell out of this thing. It was unbelievable, and I think it had a per-screen average of something like 2 people per theater nationwide in 3,000 screens or something. It was catastrophic. No one went to see this. I don't even know how that's possible. If you filled the theaters with anthrax, you couldn't chase people away to the same degree. It just had no traction at all.
Although I'm going to say something, which
go ahead.
I don't know that we have any serious proof of how its intended audience would receive this film. If you're a parent and you go to the Oogie Loves film, I'm sure you want to hang yourself.
Yeah.
But if you're 3 years old, for all you know, it's like Gone with the Wind to them.
Yeah, well, you
just don't know.
Give them money, let them go drive themselves to the theater. When they had the press screening of this, by the way, and I did not go to the press screening, but you heard about it, right? The press screening was like they had a gigantic carnival of Oogie Love Lovernalia all set up outside the theater. It was just they really just spent a gigantic amount of money trying to generate buzz for this. It's amazing. And, the people who are in this, Christopher Lloyd, Cloris Leachman, Chaz Palminteri, Cary Elwes, I mean, they're not slouches, but it doesn't exactly bring people in.
Wait, now what do you think would happen if the Oogie Loves met Sylvester Stallone?
He'd put a bullet to the head. He'd put a bullet in their heads.
He really would, wouldn't he?
He would, yeah, he would.
Stallone has sort of reinvented himself a bit as a kind of a B-movie actor with sort of like, I think he thinks he's being an A-movie action star, but actually he's a B-movie action star now.
Yeah.
But I think he has a bit of an inflated self-perception on this. The Expendables films, which I want to love so much, and I just don't like them, but you love them.
I really the first Expendables film I thought was crap, but the second one I thoroughly enjoyed. I really did. I had a great time with it.
Well, Bullet to the Head is based on a graphic novel. Imagine that. It's a New Orleans hitman played by Stallone and a policeman from Washington, D.C., and they got to bring down a bunch of bad people. So the question is, how Stallone is this? And I think that if you love Stallone, you'll dig it because he's grizzled and has had all sorts of work done and looks all dirty and stabs people and shoots people, and that's what Stallone does.
That's
but I just don't know that I just think that beyond the Expendables franchise, which at least has some sort of... It's got a vibe. It's got a thing. It makes fun of itself. It knows what it is. It brings back all the old stars. It's kitschy for the older audiences, but it still somehow has remained cool for younger audiences. That has its thing. I just think that all the other stuff that Stallone does outside of the Expendables nowadays is just basically just straight to DVD sort of stuff. But anyway, so that's Bullet to the Head. It's on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
If you're digging it.
And Erased is a very mediocre thriller. I don't know why they keep trying to make Aaron Eckhart into a leading man, because he isn't. He's a very good actor.
He's kind of like falling off the earth a little bit.
Well, you know what what he should be doing is stuff like what he did in The Dark Knight, right? That's what he should be doing. He's a good character actor. He's good in a particular kind of a part. He just doesn't carry movies very well. My wife could probably tell you a lot more. She produced all of his student films, but I think he ate a rabbit, cooked it out. They shot a rabbit out in the middle of the desert, and he cooked it and ate it on screen or some damn thing. Anyway, the Erased is kind of a mid-level thriller. It doesn't really have a lot of production value behind it, at least not as much as it needs. He plays a former CIA guy. It's very kind of Bourne Identity, right? He's a former CIA guy, and suddenly he's got to be on the run because they're trying to erase his identity, make it so that he's never existed. And he and his daughter have to be on the run. So of course you got to throw the daughter in there, so it's a little bit like Taken. So it's like the Bourne Taken, right? Can we call that the Bourne Taken with Aaron Eckhart? Yeah. Doesn't really tie up as satisfactorily as it should, but it's decently done. So mid-level. I guess it's worth a rental. Oh
wait, for some reason, The Evil Dead has been remade, and the thing with The Evil Dead is that
why? What are they thinking?
And in 1981, Sam Raimi had made The Evil Dead. It was a cult classic, and the thing with that movie is that it was sort of a product of its time. I mean, Raimi, this is sort of during the splatter era of movies like, It's Alive from the late 70s, and all those great movies that were just R-rated and really icky, but really kind of fun and cool. But he made it on a micro budget. He hired his friends, and he did it his own way, and it became a cult classic, spawned a couple sequels. And now we're not really in the spatter gore era anymore, but we are in the torture porn era, which I guess is hopefully moving its way out. And to that we have The Evil Dead. This was directed by somebody else, Fede Alvarez. And it's not a terrible movie, but it's just sort of like Evil Dead is so beloved by its fans that I just had wished they had called it something else, because now it just sort of puts a pall over the entire Evil Dead franchise.
Yep.
I mean, if Raimi wanted to do it, if he had something new to say, then that's fine. Like George Romero constantly revisits the Dead series, that's fine. But I just think that there's no reason to remake this because the first one was a classic, and this one brings nothing new to it other than more money, which means more blood and more ways to kill people. And I don't think that's really enough to justify remaking it. But go for it if you dig it, if you're an Evil Dead completist.
Yeah. Solomon Kane was supposed to be a big new franchise. This was a British production starring James Purefoy, who's been trying to be like the next big British actor for the longest time. He's one of those guys who would be in the running to be a Bond if he were a little bit more successful as an actor. James Purefoy, of course, was also starred as the Templar Knight in Ironclad.
That's right,
Fred Andrews film, which they did a sequel to, by the way. You know that there's Ironclad 2 coming out.
Yes.
Yeah, they sold it at Cannes.
But I guess Andrew had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, he got his fee, he got his producer fee for it, so good for him. But anyway, so James Purefoy stars in Solomon Kane, who is, Solomon Kane is kind of he's a pulp novel figure. He was created by Howard after Conan the Barbarian, right?
Right.
So he kind of came out of the same pulp novel tradition, and I guess they thought that they would have another Conan the Barbarian thing on their hands. And if we're talking about the more recent Conan the Barbarian, they certainly were right. This film was pilloried. It was savaged. Nobody was quite sure what they were doing, and the fact that it kind of felt like a less interesting version of Game of Thrones obviously doesn't help. So I gotta say, it's not as bad as I'd heard. It really isn't. The Blu-ray looks perfectly fine. Purefoy is, he holds his own. It's a little weird seeing with long hair. I don't think that makes for a terribly compelling performance. They maybe not the best casting, but absolutely, I think the film is acceptable. If you're a fan of the Solomon Kane, lore, I guess it'll work for you.
Wade, the long-awaited sequel to Boondock Saints is here on Blu-ray. Now, for those who don't know the story of Boondock Saints,
what's his name? Troy Dickey. What's the guy's name?
Troy Duffy was the writer and director of Boondock Saints, which is a film from 1999, and this
popularized in a documentary
called Overnight,
which was all about the hell of being an overnight success.
Well, the thing is that Troy Duffy,
he just got reamed.
It was a combination of him getting reamed by the then Miramax company, the Weinstein-led Miramax company, and also the fact that, at least as Overnight portrays it, Troy Duffy was a big, gigantic jerk who, thought he was like the bee's knees, and in the end, he was just another guy ready to be just steamrolled by Harvey Weinstein. So, Boondock Saints winds up getting released by I think it was I'm not sure who actually wound up distributing. I think it was Franchise Pictures, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But winds up getting released in 5 theaters in 1999, and it was kind of a dud. But the thing is that it developed a cult following, and Overnight, of course, made people curious about it. So this is in 1999. The movie was released in 5 theaters in that year. It bombed, got a cult following, and now finally we have the sequel, The Boondock Saints II, All Saints Day.
Because they needed a sequel.
Well, I'm sure Troy Duffy wanted to get this thing made. He had to get off his chest.
Yeah, he had to. Well, he's still trying to get a career going.
I mean, he's only directed 2 movies: The Boondock Saints and The Boondock Saints 2. That's it.
I know.
And the thing is that now he's just Overnight didn't help his reputation as being just a toxic of a jerk.
Yeah.
And the fact is that there's a million guys who make these sorts of movies. Lots of blood and fireworks.
If Victor Salva can keep making movies, then Troy Duffy ought to get a shot.
Well, there's so much straight-to-DVD stuff that I'm sure he could be doing, but who wants to work with a guy like that? The guy's just poison right now. So, but Boondock Saints 2 isn't a horrible film. And I'm sure it will develop some of the cult following that the original had enjoyed. But still, I just The Boondock Saints is not a great film. This is definitely not a great film. And Troy Duffy is not a great filmmaker. If nothing else, he knows how to copy the directors who do these things better.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really enough to recommend him. But you're right. I mean, there's no reason why this guy can't be making, straight to DVD Cuba Gooding Jr. movies.
Exactly. And one more before we get into our Vox Box. No, not yet. No, not yet. Really great British indie called Wild Bill by a director named Dexter Fletcher. Cool name, right? Dexter Fletcher. Doesn't that sound like a guy who he should either be doing your taxes or throwing a hit on your ex-wife? It's either one, right? Dexter Fletcher. Okay, maybe not. Anyway, this is one of those great British gangster films, and it stars, believe it or not, Charlie Creed Miles, all grown up and looking kind of gruff and really good. And the idea here is a pretty simple one. We've seen it a million times, but it's just done so well. And it's written really well, and it's acted really well. He's a guy, he comes out of prison. He's got a couple of kids to take care of, his two sons who are 11 and 15 years old. And he's either got to be a single dad and keep to the straight and narrow, or they're going to pull him back in. And, it's that old ex-con dilemma, right? How do I get out and lead a straight life when all of my old mates who are still knee-deep in the muck want to, drag me back in and, force me back into the illicit lifestyle. And we've seen it a million times. We all kind of know the trajectory. We all know the dilemma. But I'll tell you, the acting is really good. The writing is sharp. And it's a fun film to watch. That's from Flatiron Films, which is a division of Cinedigm. Again, the new empire of Chris McGurk, formerly of Overture, at whose house and party you embarrassed yourself in front of Dustin Hoffman.
I told that story last week.
I know. I just like backing my way into it. Any opportunity I get to back my way into a Chris McGurk reference to that party, I always do.
Hi, Mr. Hoffman. I love your movies. And I grew up on you. I like you.
All right.
You were Tootsie and a tomato. You were tomato.
All right, Mark. Let's clean up some of the old classic movie stuff that we still have sitting here from last week. Tell us why you love Mario Bava.
Well, first of all, you said classic movies that we love, and then you say Mario Bava? That makes no sense to me. Mario Bava was an Italian director. He wrote a bunch of Giallo films, which is like Italian horror. And the one thing about Bava is that he did employ Boris Karloff on occasion, and you got to love that. He's Boris Karloff. The first is Black Sabbath, and that's on Blu-ray and DVD. I have to say that I'm not a fan of this film because I'm not really a fan of Mario Bava. But, in fact, the only thing to come from this movie is the name of the band.
Okay. Fine.
Exactly. Anyway, so Black Sabbath is from, what year is this from anyway? Oh, this is from 1963, and it's here's the thing. It's a triptych. There are 3 individual horror stories in this movie, and so that means that if you don't like one, there's another one coming. And it turns out I don't like either. So people do like this film, though, I have to say. And in fact, enough where Kino does have a Mario Bava collection where they release a bunch of his movies. They're definitely cult classics. People like it. If you're in that world, you definitely like it. Me, I just think I don't like Giallo films. I don't like Tenebrae or what's his name, Argento. Don't like him. Yeah. Don't like Mario Bava. I'm really not the audience for this, but. That being said, Kino did do a good job with this. It's got a nice new 35mm, nice new HD master from a 35mm negative. And, so that's Black Sabbath with Boris Karloff. Also for the Mario Bava collection, we have Kidnapped. And Kidnapped is a little better because there's like some psychological gamesmanship kind of going on in Kidnapped that I found a little more interesting. And this is from 1974. And, and the thing is that this thing was lost for a long, long time. And I'm not sure who found it or how it got found, but it was found. It was shut down near the end of its production after the principal investor had died. Wow,
that's interesting.
So the good thing about Kidnapped is that it has a little bit of history behind it, and it does have more of a psychological bent than just a bunch of cheesy horror, although there's plenty of cheesy horror here because it is Mario Bava. But... anyway, so Mario Bava's son was the one who helped put this thing back together. So Kidnapped does have some history behind it, and it's one of the better ones.
I got to tell you, Mark, I am so unbelievably impressed by the stuff that Cohen is doing. The Cohen Film Collection people. I got a Blu-ray here in my hand. Perfect Understanding, an incredibly good romantic comedy that had just been vanished for so long. Great British romantic comedy with Gloria Swanson and Laurence Olivier. Written by Michael Powell, I might add. And directed by a guy named Cyril Gardner, who it could have been directed by, Snooky the dog. It doesn't matter. It's a really terrific Powell script, and wonderful performances, just terrific. On a Blu-ray in the standard Coen Film Collection clear Blu-ray case, which is always easily identifiable. And full disclosure, I'm having a lot of fun actually working with the Coen Film people because I did an audio commentary for a film that they're going to be releasing at the end of the month. So in a few weeks, I will get to tout my own audio commentary. It was a lot of fun to do. They're good people. They really love movies, and they are going to be releasing a lot of really, really, really cool films coming forth because remember, they have the Rohauer collection now, which means all of those old Keaton films and a lot of those old silents that have previously been only available through Kino. We're now going to get those from Coen, so they're going to become a real player in the classic and the silent film arena. They're making some unbelievably great acquisitions, and there's some stuff coming down the pike that I can't talk about. I might be doing more audio commentaries. You have consented to be part of the audio commentary pool as well.
Yes,
I should point
have.
out. Yes, you have.
Should be fun.
If they decide to pair us, we'll have more Digigods commentaries coming down the pike. Yeah,
I know, because we haven't done any since we haven't done any for like 9 months.
Yeah, for 9 months. Since, what happened 9 months ago? I don't know. I was waiting for my child to be born. That's what happened. I'm going to blow through these all. You want to time me on this? Time me.
To tie you? No.
Time me. Time me.
But I will
me
time
up.
you.
Time me
now,
up.
wait.
Time
Now,
me.
what's the challenge?
Well,
how
the
many
challenge,
movies?
Well, Olive. We've got like a stack of Olive titles here. There's some good stuff in here, some kind of negligible stuff, but I want to give it all their proper due because Olive.
How many do we have?
I don't know. There's like 15 or so.
Oh, okay, 15. So if each one, it's got to be a challenge.
9 minutes.
No. Well, let's say I give you 15 seconds to talk about each, right?
Ooh, that's tight.
Okay, 20 seconds to talk about each. 20 times 15 is something or other.
Yeah.
I don't know what 20 times 15 is.
20 times 15 is
Wait, hang on. Don't stop the recording. 20 times 20.
12.
We're so pathetic.
3,
20 times 15 is 300.
300.
300
6
divided
minutes. Do I get
by
6 minutes?
That's divided by 60. That's 5 minutes.
Oh dear. Okay.
Can you do 15 movies in 5 minutes?
Give me 6 minutes. Give me 6 minutes. Let's see if I can do this.
Okay, I'm setting the timer. And it's going to. It will. The iPhone timer will audibly go off if you don't nail this.
Okay.
You ready?
That's not ready.
3, 2, go.
All right. We got, of course, Olive, who has been acquiring a lot of Paramount titles, licensing a lot of old Paramount stuff, especially old John Wayne movies. Got 3 here. They're all middling Wayne movies. No classics, but no stinkers either. In Old California, Lady from Louisiana, and Dark Command. A lot of fun John Wayne frontier stuff here, and I'd say I'd recommend all 3 of them. Walter Pidgeon and Gabby Hayes, the old reliable Gabby Hayes, and then Raoul Walsh directed Dark Command. Probably the better film here, but in Old California, I got a little soft spot for. A movie that Mark is going to be really sorry he doesn't get to weigh in on immediately is Hangar 18. Hangar 18 was...
I remember that movie. It was cool.
He runs back to the mic.
It really was cool.
It was great. Hangar 18 was released by the Schick Sun people who did all of those documentaries like Outer Space Connection and Chariots of the Gods and all that kind of stuff. They did a lot of the sensationalistic quasi documentaries. They also did a few things like Orca, the Jaws knockoff with Richard Harris hunting a killer whale. And but this is, I think, the most fun film they did. It's about we discover a flying saucer, and it's cool. It's a really cool, fun movie. It has Gary Collins and Robert Vaughn and Darren McGavin and a lot of great kind of 70s and 80s talents in it. This is from 1980, so it sits right between the 2 decades, and it is a lot of fun. It's kind of a cheesy thriller, but when they find the flying saucer and they go inside and all the stuff that happens, it was great, right? Mark's giving me the thumbs up. Doesn't want to run back to the microphone. All right. The Girl Who Knew Too Much is an otherwise forgettable movie from 1969 that is great only because it has Adam West in it. And Adam West, of course, was Batman at the time. Everybody knew him as Batman. And, just check it out because it's got Adam West in it, darn it all. The Magic Christian. The Magic Christian is considered a really stupid kitsch film, kind of a 60s, cult movie, iconic, piece of junk that nobody really likes. But because it has Peter Sellers and Ringo Starr in it, and because it was written by Terry Southern and Peter Sellers and a whole bunch of other people from Terry Southern's novel in the wake of Terry Southern's contribution to Dr. Strangelove, and of course being an unbelievably popular writer from the time, somehow its Beat Generation 60s era credentials have been resurrected. So it's worth checking out. But just don't expect it to be all that good. It's really cheesy. And Cary Grant and Deborah Carr and Robert Mitchum and Gene Simmons in The Grass is Greener. Of course, with Stanley Donen and Cary Grant, you can't go wrong. It's they did Charade together, and even if you don't have Audrey Hepburn, you've got Deborah Carr. Not bad substitution. My Brothers is actually a new film from a guy named Paul Frazier. This is actually a pretty cool little 2010 Irish movie. One of the off titles that Olive discovers at film festivals and wherever, and it's just lovely. It's about three brothers who are trying to replace their dad's watch. It's just one of those great European films. It somehow finds a lot of love and humanity in an otherwise simple situation. Barbara Stanwyck, always wonderful in The File on Thelma Jordan, a Robert Siodmak noir from 1950, which is just perfect. Siodmak was a noir specialist, and Barbara Stanwyck certainly did some of her best work in noirs. If you haven't seen this, you're missing out. It is a terrific Blu-ray. Black and white on this Blu-ray is just it just pops. It's beautiful. Barbara Stanwyck and Gary Cooper also in Blowing Wild, directed by a director not terribly well known from the area, Hugo Fregonese or Fregonese. Never did figure out how to pronounce it. Anthony Quinn, also a great supporting part here. This takes place. It's kind of a quasi noir that takes place in South America in the 1930s. A decent film. They've all done better, but it's not bad. Reuben was a big deal at one point. Tom Conti came of age in this movie. This was a terrific 1983 indie that really, really soared. It was written by Julius Epstein. Might have been actually the last film written by Julius Epstein of Casablanca fame. And it's sharp, and it's smart, and it's funny, and it's kind of sad at the same time. And Tom Conti got an Oscar nomination for it. Very well deserved. Marcel Marceau in a movie directed by William Castle. How many times are you going to hear that? This is called Shanks, and this is a peculiar, weird, one-of-a-kind, culty movie. The last film ever directed by William Castle, and a very strange performance from Marcel Marceau close to the end of his miming career, or when he was actually doing substantial amounts of performance. From 1974, a very bizarre movie, but probably worth checking out. That's one that they really dug up from the bowels of the Paramount Library. Cary Grant again and Leslie Caron, a fetching couple in Father Goose, an absolutely delightful movie that Paramount has released previously. Apparently doesn't want to release on Blu-ray, so Olive is taking up the reins. It's a lot of fun. It's basically about a guy who decides he's not going to deal with World War II until it's over, and so it all takes place on a South Pacific island. It's a lot of fun. Leslie Caron is absolutely delightful. Not to be confused with the aforementioned Shank is Burt Reynolds in Shark, which is a bizarre Samuel Fuller movie, one of the campier Samuel Fuller movies from 1969. That just uh-oh.
Sucker!
Am I over?
You're done.
Oh man.
Oh,
that sucks.
Okay.
Oh, that sucks.
Well,
Okay.
would you like overtime?
Yeah, give me 2 minutes of overtime.
Ooh, 2 minutes.
2 minutes of overtime. I'll get through the rest of them.
Power back on.
Anyway, Burt Reynolds is American Gunrunner, but it's a pretty silly movie. Crashout has some tremendous performances in it. This is from 1955, directed by a guy named Lewis Foster, who was another kind of workman-like guy at the time. Has William Bendix and Arthur Kennedy in it. Arthur Kennedy, of course, famous as playing the photographer Bentley in Lawrence of Arabia. And Jackson Bentley, and it's about a bunch of convicts who are trying to avoid being caught, and it's pretty rivetingly done. I'm surprised it hasn't gotten more traction. So that's another one from the bowels of the Paramount Library. Let's see here. One Touch of Venus with Robert Walker and Ava Gardner. This is another great little romantic comedy, famous mainly because it was co-written by Frank Tashlin of Jerry Lewis Movies fame. And it's delightful. It's charming. Robert Walker has never been better, and it's really, really nice. Directed by William A. Sider, who previously did a movie called You Were Never Lovelier. And I just think the Tashlin screenplay is really, really sharp and charming. Definitely worth looking at. Frank Lovejoy, Richard Carlson, and Rusty Tamblyn in the Joseph H. Lewis war movie Retreat Hell. Pretty decent war movie. Looks really good on Blu-ray. This is from 1952, and it probably noteworthy really because it's one of the few films ever to deal with the Korean War. So it's noteworthy in that respect, even if it's not one of the great war movies of all time. Charles Bronson in a really good Western directed by Gene Fowler called Showdown at Boot Hill. I'm going through these as quickly as I can. Let's see. We talked about that some weeks ago, and then we've got 2 Jean-Luc Godard movies. This is the last thing that Olive is doing. Olive has licensed a bunch of Jean-Luc Godard movies, and they are releasing them a little bit like the way they do the Hal Hartley films as part of the JLG, that is the Jean-Luc Godard collection. The first one here is Comment ça va, which I don't think much of. Oh, darn it. Which is just one of Godard's non-linear, non-narrative rant movies. It's just a visual, just existential, just madcap, crazy thing. And it's a narrative film, but it's barely a narrative film. The only good thing about it is Anne-Marie Mieville, who's a pretty cool actress. And then the other one is Keep Your Right Up. Mark, did you ever see Keep Your Right Up?
That sounds awfully familiar.
Keep It Right Up. It's a really peculiar Godard film from 1987, and I guess I don't know what he's trying to make kind of a strange comedy in which he stars himself. He's trying to be Keaton and he's trying to be Chaplin.
Is that the one that's like the rock music score or
It's just he plays basically. It's one of these self-reflexive things where he plays a filmmaker who's trying to make a movie within 24 hours, and it's supposed to be funny at that point, but it just becomes weird and obscure and just kind of random. But anyway, look, Godard is Godard. Either you love him or you don't. It is what it is.
You know what? Knowing that he's in his early 80s now, but he's still fairly active. It's just a bit of a
Is he in
shame.
his early 80s?
Yes, he is.
Oh, my God.
It's just a bit of a shame that he's not making, like, real movies. He makes these weird, avant-garde little film essays more than he does make actual films. And I think that's a shame. Although I heard that he's directing the new Sci-Fi Channel original film, Sharknado.
He's doing Sharknado.
Yes,
that's good.
It's a combination of a shark and tornado attack.
That's really good. Okay, excellent. Well,
By the way,
I'm
Wade, there
looking
really is a
forward
Sharknado.
to that. I know there is,
And
and I'm embarrassed that it exists.
It's directed by Jean-Luc Godard.
That's good.
Imagine
All right.
Jean-Luc Godard brings you Sharknado.
Oh.
Be
All
awesome.
right, we got television. We got television to do now. So
We do.
we got
It's about
television.
time.
Yay! So let's a lot of classic TV this week, and very little time left in which to do it because I just blew through too much time doing all the old
Yes,
stuff.
you
But
did.
we're gonna do as much as we can. So, Mark, that's not old TV. That's TV that I don't particularly care for. I don't get. So why don't you explain to me that peculiar Cartoon Network?
Well, a lot of people do get Regular Show, Wade, because Regular Show won an Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program. So a lot of people do like it. The thing with this show, the thing that the Regular Show people do well, or the one thing they understand, is that if the adults don't hear some jokes that cater to them, knowing that the kids will never understand it, then there's a much better chance that the adults will sign on. Because really, the animation is crude and a little ridiculous, and that's what kids will like. But the dialogue, you've got to have some adult jokes in the dialogue because otherwise, if the parents don't like it, they'll be less inclined to buy all the toys and T-shirts and whatnot. So this show definitely has that. Now, Regular Show on Blu-ray, this is the first and second seasons. They're piling together on one. There's like 40 episodes in this thing, and a bunch of special features too, including commentaries for all 40 episodes. So people do like this show. I have to say that I don't know that this ever got the traction of some of the other popular kid shows of the day, but it is something that people dig, especially if you have kids of that age. Wade, I believe your daughter is a little young for Regular Show.
Yes, she is.
Now, is your daughter too young for Unforgettable?
Oh, definitely.
Now, Unforgettable
And always will be.
is another one of those cop procedural shows. NYPD cop consults on a homicide case and blah blah blah. I just think these shows are a dime a dozen. The only thing with this show is that the cop is really hot. Just like in real life, she's played by Poppy Montgomery, who had a blip as a movie actress and never really happened. But so now she's doing this show, which I think is on CBS. But I have to say that this is just not a good show because it just seems like just another one of those shows where like the super hot, leather-clad, hot detective solves crimes in the big city. Like, it's enough already.
You know it's not like that, Mark?
Star Wars?
Sweet, nostalgic 1959 classic CBS television show that many loves of Dobie Gillis, which ran for 4 years and which is available now in a complete series box set from Shout Factory. Yay, Shout Factory. Shout out for Shout. This is 147 episodes on 21 DVDs, and if you love classic TV, you got to get it. Dobie Gillis basically starred... it's based on short stories. Did you know that? I never knew that. Dobie Gillis was based on a short story collection from Max Schulman. I don't even know who Max Schulman was, but he was I guess a big humorist in the 1950s.
He was probably Jewish.
Probably. With a name like Max Schulman. Yes, I would think so. He's certainly not Swedish. Anyway, not that there aren't Swedish Jews, of course, they just aren't named Max Schulman.
Just get your foot out of your mouth and move on.
Anyway.
Nothing to see here.
So Dwayne Hickman, who was something of a minor celebrity at the time, was the star of the show, and Bob Denver of future Gilligan's Island fame played his beatnik buddy, his totally lazy bum, loaf-around beatnik buddy, with an even better name than Gilligan. And Gilligan never had a last name, which is Gilligan. But his name here is Maynard G. Krebs. I love that. Maynard Krebs. Anyway, Bob Denver actually did more episodes of Dobie Gillis than he did of Gilligan's Island, and yet he's famous for Gilligan. That's his famous incarnation.
Well, because that show has endured.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas Dobie Gillis has not.
And Dobie Gillis should. I hope people rediscover it here. The idea is very simple. Dobie just wants to find a great girl. And, it was an easier time, a gentler time. It was a sweeter, more innocent time. So you could kind of get away with that in the late 60s. But by 1963, which is around when the time the show was finishing its run, it's, you're getting into a kind of a rougher period. I mean, you're getting, Kennedy assassination, Vietnam starting to boil over, the civil rights movement, segregation, race war, civil rights act. I mean, all of these kinds of things are suddenly in the zeitgeist, and it, I think, just kind of took the wind out of shows like Dobie Gillis, which sort of belongs more to the Leave It to Beaver, Ozzie and Harriet era.
This
in
is
many
really
respects.
This is one of the last of the sort of the Eisenhower era post-war.
Bingo, exactly.
Shows, and the thing is that people don't remember is that who one of the main kind of villains of the show was? Warren Beatty.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean
He played Milt.
It's a fun show. It's a fun show. People definitely should rediscover it. I think it's easier to appreciate it now than maybe when it was on at the time and kind of losing favor with the zeitgeist. The original pilot is on here, or at least footage from it. And you get some bonus episodes from other shows like Love That Bob and The Stu Irwin Show, and even pages from some of the scripts. It's a wonderful, wonderful package. Total of 21 DVDs, 147 episodes. Absolutely fabulous.
And
Gotta love it.
Thank goodness they're not releasing it on season sets that'll take forever.
Oh, no. Dobie Gillis, the whole deal, all 4 years, right here, one box set. Done. Go get it.
Speaking of one box set,
I know,
so
but speaking of, this is going to take forever. But yeah.
No, it's not. I'll make this take 10 seconds. Season 6 of Bonanza is on DVD. Normally, they've been releasing these on half-season sets, which is really annoying. But now they have packaged both half-season sets together and called it the official 6-season value pack. Oh, please. You know what they're finally realizing? That nobody wants to buy half a season of Bonanza. So just put the damn thing on a DVD,
I know.
one per season. Enough already.
I know.
Jesus.
I hear you.
I know you do. Bonanza. Nobody cares about Bonanza. It's over.
A couple of classic shows that I want to make mention of very quickly because it's worthwhile. The FBI 5th season Part 2 and Part 1 in one pack. Thank goodness they decided to do this. This is the FBI was a good show. I just don't know if it was good enough to I don't know, to be even doing as a DVD-R series from Warner Archive, which is what this is. The FBI had, it was one of those Quinn Martin production deals, and it had Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. in it, and it was a very clean procedural. But in this age of really, really intense procedurals, it feels dated. It really does. I used to love this show at the time, but now I watch it, and it even feels dated compared to something like Hawaii Five-0, which it feels like very, very timely apart from all the 60s kitsch in it. So the FBI is out there, the 5th season in 2 parts that are packaged together. You can get it if you want, but nostalgia is really the only reason that the show kind of stays afloat. And then, more importantly, Mark, the complete first season of How the West Was Won, which is a show that I loved, and I never thought that this would kind of find favor again, because this show just kind of went right off the map. This ran for a number of seasons. It originally started as a television movie called The McKayans, and it's all about a frontier family in the Old West. It is a huge epic tale with James Arness, formerly of Gunsmoke fame, playing Zeb McKayan, the patriarch of this family, a young Bruce Boxleitner, also in the clan. And it's it's really remarkable how this show was able to spin lots of stories that spanned the entire fabric and tapestry of the West. You would have on this show, for example, Zeb would go off and do one thing, and Boxleitner would go off and do another thing, and he'd be wanted, and he'd be a mountain man, and the family's back at the homestead. And you're weaving all these stories together and going to all these different places, and occasionally the family will come back to the same place. But it really tried every week to be this huge, sweeping all-American tapestry, and it succeeded. I've never seen a show that quite did that as effectively, and it would at some level, I think it was too ambitious for its own good. But boy, this was a really, really good show. Eva Marie Saint was on here. Just such a really, really good show, and I'm so happy that it's finally back out on where people can see it. And one of the best theme songs ever. The theme music for this is amazing. It's amazing. Some of the best theme music you will ever hear. Next time we get a season on this, I'm gonna yank it off and I'm gonna use it to open the show. I swear I'll do that.
You swear? Don't threaten me.
It's a threat.
All right, Wade. There was a funny headline in the Onion a couple weeks ago. The headline was, USA Network renews burn notice, royal pains, burn collar, covert notice, royal affairs, legal burns. Which is to say that USA Network has just a bunch of these similar shows that are completely interchangeable and nondescript, and no one really can tell one from the other. And they're all about spies and lawyers in pretty locations, and it's just embarrassing. Well, to that we have Burn Notice Season 6, and this thing just keeps going, and I don't get it, and I don't care, and there's... Although I have to say, Rennie Harlan directs one of the episodes of this, so there's more action in that one, because Rennie Harlan obviously is an action director. And Bruce Campbell's in this, which I guess is okay, because we talked about Evil Dead last week. Was it last week, or was it this week? Was it earlier this week or last week?
It was last week.
I don't even remember. Anyway, Burn Notice Season 6. Come on, guys. Just stop that already. Rectify is a show that was originally...
Excuse me, Whatify?
Rectify.
Oh, my goodness.
Rectify was originally developed for AMC, but then the Sundance Channel picked it up. I think it was their first original scripted series. This is a pretty good film. Pretty good show. It's from the producers of Breaking Bad, and it's about a guy who is released from death row after 19 years. He has to go back to his family and his community, and he's got to get himself reincorporated into life after spending 19 years on death row for a crime he, I guess, presumably did not commit. So I find the show actually pretty good. I have to say, I have checked it out. It's on DVD, which is lame. Anchor Bay, why did you do that? It should be on Blu-ray. But it's a good show. I'm curious to see how they develop it, because, again, there's a lot of stories to tell as this guy starts to reincorporate himself into civilian life. So there you go. Rectify.
Cool. Mark, I rave every once in a while about megahertz here. MHZ Networks, the megahertz networks, people at mhznetworks.org. They are doing an amazing job of bringing some really, really cool foreign language television series out. And we have a series now. I mean, they've done, we're going to talk about another one here, Borgen, in a second. But Beck, I have here, which you asked, I think earlier in the show, how many installments of that movie Beck? And I said it's a TV series. There are 8 volumes here, 3 episodes per, and Beck is a great detective series. I mean, it is a great Swedish detective series. You've got to check this out. This is it's all in Swedish, of course, with subtitles, but some cool extras, and it's so well written. It is grittier and grungier and tougher and smarter even than I think any British detective series I've ever seen. It's one of the best TV detective shows I think that's ever been. It is really, really good. And part of that is just because the guy, Martin Beck, who's the central detective, he has this great chemistry with his partner named Gunvald, who's just a loose cannon. It's I wouldn't call it exactly a good cop, bad cop thing, but it's definitely, there's a tension there. It's not even, Holmes and Watson. There's a great tension between these two guys, and it's just riveting. Every episode is like this great thriller. and they're smartly written. They never repeat themselves, and they never feel claustrophobically procedural. There's not too much talking and boredom. You could just burn through episodes in no time flat. You could buy like 3 or 4 or 5 volumes of this, and you'll just blow through a whole day, and you won't even realize it. Really, really great stuff. And then also from Megahertz, MHZ Networks, is Season 2 of Borgen, which is the very, very smart Danish political series, kind of West Wingy, but it's pretty sharp, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some American version of this show up a little bit like we did with Kevin Spacey and Netflix doing the House of Cards, the original British series. And this is really sharp. Season 2, we talked about Season 1 a few weeks ago. This is pretty great. Definitely check this out. That one's just. This is great. They're all great. Good Scandinavian television, which we always knew was there. It's just nobody's ever bothered to release it in this country before.
Wait, Warehouse 13, the sci-fi show keeps going. Season 4 is now on DVD, not Blu-ray. Stop that, people. This is the show about there's this repository of supernatural artifact. Repository. Remember that famous Star Trek blooper?
First you're talking about Rectify, and now you're talking about repositories.
Remember that?
You're just all about the butt today, aren't you?
Remember that famous Star Trek blooper where Leonard Nimoy, he was supposed to say, the planet acts as a repository, but instead he said, the planet acts as a suppository. Yeah. And then when he says the blooper, because he had his hands behind his back, like Spock always would have his hands behind his back. So when he blew the line, he takes his hands from behind his back, and he's holding a lollipop. And he puts the lollipop in his mouth. He's like, the planet acts as a suppository. Then he cracks up, puts the lollipop in his mouth.
It's great.
Anyway, Warehouse 13. This show, I don't know what to say about this show. It's just another sci-fi thing that is okay. It's just so bad.
That's why I let you handle this one.
These sci-fi shows, they don't really take off. They're really like USA. They're like USA Network shows. They're all kind of the same. They're all with pretty people doing interesting things, and in the end, none of them are very distinctive. They're just filler. It's just primetime filler. It's just not great stuff. But anyway, if you like it, go for it. Season 4, Warehouse 13. I'm a fan of Robot Chicken. I admit it. I know I shouldn't admit it, but I do admit it. I like Robot Chicken. This is the show co-created by Seth Green from Family Guy, and this is a bunch of stop-action puppet humor. And I like it. This is Robot Chicken DC Comics Special, so all the jokes are at the expense of DC Comics. And you know what? Robot Chicken, Wade.
All right.
I like Robot Chicken.
Fine.
Portlandia comes in. I'm really... What's with this Portlandia... It's very Seattle to have this packaging on a Portlandia DVD.
This is why Fred Armisen basically left Saturday Night Live a few months ago, because he wants to focus more on Portlandia. I don't get it. I think he gets more traction out of Saturday Night Live, but I know people who love Portlandia, so more power to you.
Well, this is a sketch comedy thing, too, and it's filmed in Portland or near Portland. And, it's a fun show. Here's the thing with SNL, though. I would imagine on a show like this, Armisen probably gets a lot more control over his creations. He doesn't have the pressure of being on SNL every week. And I would imagine this is probably the best of his experience working on SNL without the worst of it, which are the hours. So I get it. Anyway, this is Season 3, 2-disc set, in a very eco-friendly packaging.
Cool. All right, and then the last 3 on our television list here, and then we will sign out, is starting off with a couple of, the series television is where women do a lot better than in movies these days. And the final season of Damages, which was great for Glenn Close's career resurrection, is pretty sharp. Ryan Felipe and Rose Byrne co-star. And, Glenn Close, I mean, there's been a lot written, and it's in the Obst book, too. She talks a lot about, the crossover now between television and film, and how great film actors are no longer a step down to go to television and then back again. There's a lot more permeability between the two. And I got to tell you, she's really, really good. I mean, yes, she's playing an attorney, and it's a legal show, but somehow, Glenn Close brings the heft, and it makes this final season go off with a bang. And then Dana Delaney in Body of Proof. Dana Delaney does not age. This show is coming back, and this is the 3rd season, so the 4th season on air now, 3rd season on DVD. And boy, I'll tell you, with all the shows about medical examiners that we've had, starting with Quincy, somehow there's still a lot of traction in it, and this show has gotten better and better with each successive season. I think it's really hitting its stride here in the 3rd season. And definitely check it out. Some great guest appearances here, and Dana Delaney just is ageless. She's just wonderful. And then lastly, Blu-ray of Killing Lincoln, which is one of the last things that was produced by Ridley and Tony Scott together before Tony Scott went and took a swan dive off the Vincent Thomas Bridge here in Los Angeles for reasons that no one still really understands. This is based on the book by Bill O'Reilly, or rather the book by Bill O'Reilly and Martin Dugard. So you do the math and figure out who did most of the work on the book. I don't know. But anyway, it's narrated by Tom Hanks and stars this guy Billy Campbell from The Killing, who's surprisingly good as Lincoln, especially in the wake of Daniel Day-Lewis recently winning an Oscar and being, you're going to compare everybody to him. He does a pretty darn good Lincoln. Certainly his own Lincoln. It's nothing at all like like what we saw in Lincoln. But no historical eye-openers here for me. I didn't go, oh my gosh, really? That's not what I learned in the history books. But it's otherwise it's fine and it's interesting, and it did really, really well on television in the ratings. And that's why we're probably going to see Killing Kennedy next, and isn't Killing Jesus next on his book list? Wasn't that of all the killing things that he's doing?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know.
Yeah.
How about killing his career? Bad books.
All right, that's it. We are done for this week. We'll be back next week. Please send us your listener mails. We didn't get to them today, but we will get to them next week. Listener mails, Vox boxes, people who have never sent us a Vox box before. Don't be embarrassed about hearing your voice on the show. You'll be forever immortalized as Mark and I make fun of you. And that's worth everything. So send us your Vox boxes, send us your suggestions for our outros, and send us listener mail at gods@digigods.com. We'll see you next week.